You woke up tired. Again, not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. Not the kind that comes from a hard day's work and leaves you satisfied, heavy-limbed, ready for rest. This is different. This is the kind of tired that lives in your bones, the kind that makes you wonder if you've ever actually rested, the kind that follows you through the day like a shadow, making every task feel heavier than it should, every decision more exhausting than it needs to be. You tell yourself it's temporary. Just this week, just this month, just until you finish this project, launch this thing, get through this period, but the period never ends. The exhaustion deepens, and somewhere beneath the rationalization, you know the truth. You are not tired because you are working hard. You are tired because you are at war with yourself. And the war has no end. Byung-Chul Han, a Korean-born philosopher teaching in Berlin, has spent the last 2 decades trying to understand why we are so exhausted. Why burnout has become epidemic, why rest does not restore us, why we feel guilty when we are not productive, why we cannot stop optimizing, improving, hustling, grinding, even when we know it is destroying us. And his answer is not what you expect. He does not blame capitalism, though capitalism plays a role. He does not blame technology, though technology accelerates the problem. He blames something far more insidious, something harder to fight, because it does not come from outside. It comes from within. He calls it the Achievement Society. And in this society, you are not oppressed by a boss, a system, or an authority figure telling you what to do. You are oppressed by yourself, by your own demand for more, by your internalized belief that you are not enough, that you could be doing more, achieving more, optimizing more. You have become both the slave and the master never rests. This is not a story about overwork. This is a story about self-exploitation. About what happens when freedom turns into a new kind of tyranny, when you can becomes more oppressive than you must, when the absence of external control does not free you but traps you in an endless cycle of self-demand that you cannot escape because the voice telling you to do more is your own. Han begins with a simple observation. The 20th century was a world of no. It was a world of walls, borders, prohibitions, a world where power was visible, the factory boss, the authoritarian state, the institution that told you exactly what you could not do. Discipline was external, obedience was enforced, and resistance was clear because the enemy was visible. But we do not live in that world anymore. We live in the world of yes, the world of unlimited potential, the world where you are told every single day that you can be anything, do anything, achieve everything. There are no walls stopping you. No one is holding you back. The only limit is you, your effort, your discipline, your willingness to optimize on the surface. This looks like freedom, and maybe at first it was the breaking down of old hierarchies, the dismantling of rigid structures, the opening of possibility. But Han argues that something insidious happened in this transition. The master did not disappear. The master internalized. You became your own authority, your own disciplinarian, your own slave driver. And because the oppression now comes from within, you experience it not as oppression, but as freedom. This is the Achievement Society, and its defining feature is not external coercion, but self-coercion. You do not need a boss to tell you to work harder. You tell yourself. You do not need an institution to demand more from you. You demand more from yourself. You are your own surveillance system, your own panopticon, watching yourself, judging yourself, measuring yourself, and finding yourself perpetually insufficient. Han writes, the achievement subject is faster and more productive than the obedience subject, but the master who exploits it is not an external authority. The achievement subject exploits itself voluntarily. It is both exploiter and exploited in one. You feel this. You know this. You know the voice that wakes you up at 5 a.m. to meditate, journal, work out, optimize. You know the guilt when you take a day off. You know the anxiety when you're not producing, not improving, not hustling. You know the way rest feels like failure, the way leisure feels like laziness, the way doing nothing feels like dying slowly. This is not laziness. This is not a lack of discipline. This is the opposite. This is too much discipline. This is discipline turned inward, weaponized against yourself until you are exhausted not from the work, but from the relentless internal demand to always be more, and the cruelest part. You think this is your choice? You think you are free? You think the hustle is yours, the drive is yours, the ambition is yours? But Han would say, you have been colonized, not by force, not by coercion, but by a logic so pervasive, so invisible, that you experience your own exploitation as self-improvement. The Achievement Society operates on a simple logic. You can be better, you can do more, you can optimize, and because you can, you should, and because you should, you must. The imperative is no longer external, it is internal. It is the voice in your head that says, if you are not improving, you are falling behind. If you are not producing, you are wasting time. If you are not optimizing, you are failing. And this logic is exhausting, not just physically, psychologically, spiritually, because it has no end point. There is no moment when you have done enough, no moment when you can rest and say, I am sufficient. The Achievement Society promises that if you just work harder, optimize better, hustle longer, you will finally arrive, but the arrival never comes. The goalpost moves, the bar raises, and you are left running on a treadmill that speeds up every time you think you're catching up. Han calls this the violence of positivity, not the violence of no, of prohibition, punishment, restriction, but the violence of yes, of unlimited potential, of constant encouragement, of the relentless message that you can do anything, be anything, achieve anything, if only you try hard enough. And this violence is harder to resist because it does not feel like violence. It feels like freedom. It feels like opportunity. It feels like self-empowerment. You are not being forced. You are choosing, and so when you burn out, when you collapse, when you cannot keep going, you blame yourself. You think, I was not disciplined enough, I was not strong enough, I was not optimized enough. The system does not break you, you break yourself, and then you apologize for breaking. Burnout, Han argues, is not a personal failure. It is the logical endpoint of the Achievement Society. It is what happens when self-exploitation becomes total, when there is no separation between work and life, when productivity becomes identity, when rest becomes guilt, when the only way to feel valuable is to be useful. You know this feeling. The exhaustion that is not just tiredness, but a deep, soul-level depletion, the sense that you are disappearing into your tasks, that you are becoming a function rather than a person, that your worth is measured entirely by what you produce, achieve, optimize. And when you cannot produce, when the exhaustion becomes too great, when the body finally says no, you experience not relief but shame, because in the Achievement Society, burnout is read as personal inadequacy rather than systemic violence. Han traces this shift through history. In the disciplinary society, the world of factories, institutions, rigid hierarchies, power was repressive. It said no, it prohibited, it punished, and so resistance was clear. You could identify the oppressor, you could fight the system, you could refuse the demand. But in the Achievement Society, power is not repressive, it is seductive. It does not say no, it says yes. It does not prohibit, it enables. It does not punish failure. It simply withdraws the reward. And so resistance becomes impossible. Because how do you resist your own desire? How do you fight your own ambition? How do you refuse a system that tells you that you're free? This is what Han calls smart power. The power that does not need force because it has convinced you to exploit yourself. The power that does not need surveillance because you surveil yourself. The power that does not need coercion because you have internalized its logic so deeply that you experience your own oppression as self-actualization, and the most effective instrument of this power. Not the factory, not the institution, but the quantified self, the fitness tracker, the productivity app, the habit tracker, the self-optimization software that turns your entire life into data, into metrics, into numbers that must always go up. You track your steps, your sleep, your heart rate, your calories, your screen time, your water intake, your meditation minutes. You turn yourself into a project, a startup, an ongoing experiment in self-improvement, and every metric becomes a judgment. Every number becomes a measure of your worth. You are not enough unless the numbers say you are, and the numbers never say you are. This is not wellness, this is self-surveillance. This is the logic of the Achievement Society internalized so deeply that you monitor yourself more closely than any boss ever could. You do not need external discipline. You have become your own Foucauldian panopticon. You are both the prisoner and the guard, and the prison is your own mind. Han writes, overwork and performance enhancement amount to self-exploitation. This is more efficient than allo-exploitation, for the feeling of freedom accompanies it. You feel free. You think you're choosing this. You think the hustle is yours, the grind is yours, the optimization is yours. But Han is asking, is it? Or have you internalized a logic that benefits a system that does not care about your burnout, your exhaustion, your collapse? A system that extracts value from your self-exploitation and then discards you when you can no longer produce. The Achievement Society does not need to force you to work. It just needs to make you feel guilty when you rest. It does not need to punish you for failing. It just needs to make you feel inadequate when you're not improving. It does not need to coerce you. It just needs to convince you that your value is your productivity. And once that belief is internalized, you do the rest yourself. And so you work, and you optimize, and you hustle, and you burn out, and you blame yourself, and you try again, and the cycle repeats. Not because you are weak, not because you are undisciplined, but because you are operating within a system that has no endpoint, a system where enough does not exist, a system where rest is read as failure and exhaustion is read as insufficient effort. But burnout is not just physical exhaustion, it is something deeper, something Han calls the exhaustion of the soul, the inability to engage with the world not because you are too tired, but because you have lost the capacity for attention, for presence, for being. You are not just tired, you are depleted. Hollowed out, operating on autopilot while the self that used to inhabit your body slowly disappears. Han connects this to another crisis, the crisis of attention. In the Achievement Society, you cannot focus, not because you lack discipline, but because focus requires duration. It requires the ability to stay with something long enough for depth to emerge, and the Achievement Society operates on acceleration, on multitasking, on the constant switching between tasks, notifications, demands. You are always doing something, and so you are never fully present for anything. Multitasking, Han argues, is not efficiency, it is a form of regression. It is what animals do when they are scanning for predators, constant vigilance, constant switching, constant surface-level awareness, but depth requires something else. It requires contemplation, and contemplation requires boredom. It requires the ability to sit with something long enough for meaning to emerge. And the Achievement Society has eliminated boredom entirely. You cannot be bored anymore the moment boredom threatens. You reach for your phone, you scroll, you check, you distract. You fill the void with content, with notifications, with tasks, and in doing so you eliminate the very condition that allows depth, meaning, and presence to arise. Han writes about the scent of time, the way time used to feel when it had duration, when a day felt like a day, when a year felt like a year. When experiences had weight, had texture, had resonance. But in the Achievement Society, time has become atomized. It is no longer a river, it is scattered points. Disconnected moments, you move from task to task, notification to notification, and at the end of the day you cannot remember what you did. Time passes but leaves no trace. You are busy but not present. You are working but not living. And this is not an accident. This is the logic of the Achievement Society. It needs you to be accelerated. It needs you to multitask. It needs you to be always available, always responsive, always productive. Because the moment you slow down, the moment you become present, the moment you stop producing, you start questioning. And questioning is dangerous. Han also connects the Achievement Society to the crisis of love, to the inability to form deep connections, to the reduction of relationships to transactions. In the world of total transparency, where everyone is always available to be strange, unknowable, irreducible to your needs and desires. But in the Achievement Society, the other has been reduced to the same. Everyone is transparent, everyone is knowable, everyone is consumable. And so desire dies, not from lack of options, but from the absence of otherness. The Achievement Society promises connection, but it delivers isolation, because you are so busy optimizing yourself, performing yourself, curating yourself, that you never actually encounter another person. You encounter only reflections, versions of yourself, surfaces without depth. And so you feel alone even when you're surrounded, exhausted even when you're connected, empty even when you are full, and the exhaustion deepens. Not just in your body, in your capacity to feel, to care, to be moved. Han calls this the crisis of eros, the death of desire, not because you do not want things, but because wanting has become pathological. You want endlessly, you scroll endlessly, you consume endlessly. But nothing satisfies, nothing fills, nothing lasts, because the achievement society has turned desire into addiction. And addiction is not desire. It is the inability to desire properly, the constant craving that is never satisfied, because satisfaction would mean stopping, and stopping is death in the achievement society. So how do you escape? How do you resist a system that operates from within? How do you fight a master who is yourself? Han's answer is not what you expect. He does not tell you to quit your job. He does not tell you to delete your apps. He does not offer a 12-step program for burnout recovery, because the problem is not external, the problem is internal. You have internalized the logic of the achievement society so deeply that even resistance becomes another form of self-optimization. Even rest becomes a productivity strategy. Even doing nothing becomes something you must do correctly. The only way out, Han suggests, is not to do more, but to learn how to be less. Not to optimize rest, but to stop optimizing entirely. Not to become more disciplined, but to become less driven. Not to perform better, but to stop performing altogether. He talks about the importance of boredom, real boredom, not the kind you fill with scrolling, but the kind that stretches, that makes you uncomfortable, that forces you to sit with yourself without distraction. Because boredom, real boredom, is the condition for contemplation, for depth, for the emergence of something that is not produced but received. He talks about the importance of uselessness, of doing things that have no purpose, no outcome, no metric, things that do not improve you or optimize you or make you more productive, things that simply are walking without tracking your steps, reading without highlighting, sitting without meditating, being without becoming. And he talks about the importance of the other, of encountering something or someone who is not reducible to you, not transparent, not knowable, not consumable, something that resists your understanding, that challenges your categories, that refuses to be optimized, measured, quantified. This is not a program. This is a practice, a slow, difficult, ongoing practice of unlearning, of letting go of the achievement subject, of refusing the logic of self-exploitation, of recognizing that you are not a project, you are not a startup, you are not a machine to be optimized, you are a person. And persons do not need to justify their existence through productivity, but this is unbearably difficult. Because the achievement society is not just external, it is in you. It is your voice, your judgment, your standard, and letting go of it feels like letting go of yourself, like giving up, like failing, and maybe in the logic of the achievement society, it is failure. But Han is asking, what if failure is the only form of resistance? What if the refusal to achieve is the only way to stop being exploited? What if rest is not recovery but rebellion? You are tired because you are at war with yourself, and the only way to end the war is to stop fighting, not to try harder, not to optimize better, but to stop, to rest, to refuse, to become, for a moment, useless, unproductive enough. This will not be easy. The voice will return. The guilt will return. The anxiety will return because the achievement society does not release you just because you see it. It is a logic. And logic does not disappear when you name it, but seeing it is the first step. Understanding that your exhaustion is not personal failure, but systemic violence is the first step. Recognizing that you are both slave and master is the first step, and maybe the second step is this: to rest anyway, to refuse anyway, to be useless anyway, not as a strategy, not as self-care, but as refusal, as resistance, as the quiet, radical act of being enough without proving it. Byung-Chul Han is still alive, still writing, still diagnosing the violence of our time. And his diagnosis is clear. You are exhausted because you are free, and your freedom has become your prison. The achievement society has turned you into your own exploiter, and the only way out is to stop, not to do more, to do less, not to optimize rest, to refuse optimization entirely. This is not comfortable. This is not easy. This is not a program you can follow, but it is the truth. And maybe the truth is enough. Maybe seeing clearly is enough. Maybe recognizing that you're at war with yourself is the first step toward peace. The Burnout Society is waiting. The voice is waiting. The guilt is waiting. And Byung-Chul Han is asking, will you keep fighting yourself, or will you finally rest?